Here's a fresh, full-length retelling, same heart, new skin. A rags-to-riches redemption romance with all the drama, faith, and swoon you love. The cathedral doors slammed open so hard the hinges screamed. Elena Vasquez stood at the top of the aisle in $20,000 worth of silk and French lace, and watched the man who was supposed to become her husband sprint down the marble steps like the devil himself was chasing him. 200 of New York's elite froze mid-gasp. Phones rose like periscopes. Someone's champagne flute slipped and shattered. "You promised me forever, Caleb." Elena's voice cracked across the vaulted ceiling. Caleb Whitmore didn't look back. Her bouquet hit the floor. Then her knees did. The string quartet kept playing for 3 agonizing seconds before the first violinist realized no one was breathing. Elena couldn't breathe. The corset that had felt regal 10 minutes ago now crushed her ribs like a vice. She was 28 years old, the youngest senior VP in Lockwood and Associates history, and she had just been left at the altar on live television. A low clatter echoed behind her. A mop handle. A man in Navy maintenance coveralls stepped out from the shadows of the side aisle, pushing a yellow bucket. Tall, shoulders too broad for the uniform, skin like dark mahogany. I was like someone who'd seen every kind of storm and still chose kindness. He stopped 10 feet away, took one look at the bride crumpled on Italian marble, and did the most insane thing anyone had ever seen in St. Patrick's Cathedral. He walked straight down the aisle, knelt in front of her, and spoke in a voice so low and steady it cut through every murmur. "Miss, if he won't have you, I will." The cathedral lost its collective mind. A dowager in the front row actually dropped her pearls. Elena's mother screamed, "Security!" But security was too stunned to move. The man never raised his voice. He simply stayed on one knee, palms open, waiting. "I don't even know your name," Elena whispered, mascara bleeding black rivers down her cheeks. "Malachi. Malachi King." He said it like it didn't matter. Like names were the least important thing in the room right now. "All I know is no woman should have to stand up from this floor feeling worthless. Let me help you stand up feeling chosen." Elena stared at him. She should have laughed. Should have had him escorted out. Instead, she heard herself say, "You're serious. As God is my witness." Behind them, the heavy doors banged open again. Caleb stormed back in, tie askew, hair wild, regret written all over his pretty face. "Elena, baby, I panicked, don't do this." 2 ushers tried to stop him. They bounced off a mountain in a tuxedo. Malachi's younger brother Josiah, apparently, who had materialized out of nowhere and now blocked the aisle like a nightclub bouncer. Caleb tried to push past. "She's my fiancée," Josiah said calmly. Past tense. Elena looked from her ex, shaking, frantic, suddenly small, to the man still kneeling in front of her, calm as sunrise. Something inside her chest snapped loose. She placed her trembling hand in Malachi's. "I accept." The cathedral detonated. Someone's aunt fainted into a candle display. The priest dropped the missile with a thud that echoed like a gunshot. Caleb made a sound like a wounded animal. Malachi rose slowly, never letting go of her hand, and turned to the shell-shocked priest. "Father Michael, I believe you still have a marriage license with today's date on it." Father Michael opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I suppose the church has seen stranger things." 20 minutes later, Elena Vasquez became Elena King in front of 200 stunned guests, one furious ex, and every major gossip outlet in Manhattan. She didn't kiss her new husband at the end. He simply pressed his forehead to hers for one quiet second and whispered, "I've got you now." Then he carried her out past the flashing cameras, still in that Navy janitor uniform, while all of New York tried to figure out who the hell Malachi King was. The ride to Brooklyn was quiet. Elena sat in the passenger seat of a 10-year-old Ford pickup that smelled faintly of pine cleaner and coffee. Her wedding gown took up most of the cab. Malachi drove with one hand, the other resting on the gearshift like he was afraid she might vanish if he didn't keep her tethered to planet Earth. "You didn't have to do that," she said finally. "I know. I could annul it tomorrow." "You can." He glanced over. "But tonight, you're not the woman who got left." Tonight you're the woman who got chosen. Let me give you that, at least for one night. They pulled up to a nondescript brick building in Red Hook. He carried her up 3 flights because the gown wouldn't fit in the tiny elevator. Inside, the apartment was small, spotless, and smelled like sandalwood and old books. A single saxophone wailed softly from a vintage record player. He set her down gently. Couch pulls out. I'll take the floor. She stared at him. You married me, and you're sleeping on the floor? Until you tell me different. Her phone had been blowing up for hours. She finally looked. 87 missed calls. Caleb, her mother, her boss. Page 6. TMZ. One text from Caleb that just said, You married the janitor? Are you insane? She turned the phone off and looked at the man who had rescued her with nothing but courage and a quiet heart. Malachi. Mom. Why does the name Malachi King sound familiar? He went very still. Before he could answer, a sharp knock thundered at the door. Malachi muttered something that might have been a prayer and opened it. A man in a $5,000 suit stood there, flanked by 2 others. Mr. King, the man said tightly, the board has been trying to reach you for 6 hours. The Tokyo Exchange opens in 90 minutes and you're needed for the Meridian vote. Elena's head snapped toward her new husband. Malachi King. King Holdings. The reclusive billionaire who owned half the skyline she could see from her old corner office. The man Forbes called the ghost of Wall Street because no one had a current photo of him. He didn't just clean the cathedral for charity. He owned it. He rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly looking younger, almost sheepish. I can explain, he said quietly. Elena let out a laugh that surprised them both, shaky, disbelieving, and real for the first time all day. You absolute lunatic, she whispered. Then she walked straight into his arms, wedding dress and all, buried her face in his chest, and started laughing so hard she cried. Malachi held her like she was the most precious thing he'd ever been trusted with. Outside, Manhattan kept spinning, cameras flashing, headlines screaming. Inside that tiny Brooklyn apartment, a bride who'd been abandoned found out she'd accidentally married the one man in New York powerful enough to burn the entire city down for her, and humble enough to mop its floors when no one was looking. And for the first time all day, Elena Vasquez, no, Elena King, felt something dangerously close to hope. She looked up at him, eyes still wet. Malachi King, you are in so much trouble. He smiled for the first time all day, slow, crooked, devastating. Mrs. King, he said softly, I've been in trouble since the moment I saw you walking down that aisle. And I have never been more grateful for it in my life. The record player spun. The city roared outside the window. And somewhere between the ruins of one love and the wild beginning of another, 2 strangers who had just promised each other forever started falling. Hard, fast, and without a single safety net. It was the most beautiful mess New York had ever seen.